Okay, viewers, let's do a study on the Prime Minister's latest press conference.
Thanks for joining us, and I'm joined by the AFP Commissioner. This has been the darkest week in Australia's recent history. The terrorist atrocity committed against innocent people, celebrating Hanukkah last week at Bondi Beach, targeting our cherished Jewish Australian community, has left our nation grieving and angry. The nation is carrying deep pain and sorrow. And last night, I was honoured to join with Jewish worshippers at the Great Synagogue in Sydney to honour the memory of the 15 lives stolen last Sunday, and to also commemorate those who've been injured and a community that has been deeply traumatised by the events of last Sunday. Last night, hosted by Rabbi Ben Elton, it was a night of unity, resilience, comfort, faith and love. It was also a
Very
celebration
positive at the
of
moment.
Hanukkah with fire displays and entertainment for the young children who were there at the Great Synagogue. It showed to me that the spirit of our Jewish Australian community is completely unbreakable. Australia will not allow these evil, anti-Semitic terrorists to divide us. No matter how dark things were and continue to be, light will triumph, and that is what...
Now, I just want to interject there. We must be reminded that Anthony Albanese neglected and ignored the pro-Palestinian jihadi calls for intifada on the Harbour Bridge, the Opera House, and the rest of it. He has to be responsible for this because he never opposed it. So while this is all positive, right, there's still an underlying core value system in the Labor Party that let the jihad mentality manifest. You have to understand that, and that's where, for all his good qualities and acumens, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese let down not just the Jews, but the Australian nation. Myself, as a Australian Aboriginal with Lebanese descent, Aboriginal and Lebanese descent, I was disappointed when the government wasn't stopping. As a matter of fact, they were putting out hundreds of police, thousands of police, to facilitate these pro-Palestinian intifada, radical, fanatical, jihad, propaganda events. Now, for all this prowess and forgiveness and unity given the worst Jewish massacre in Australia, you cannot forget that the government allowed it to build to a point where the frenzy, right, the psychological and spiritual frenzy that was able to manifested in a massacre on the another iconic place, Bondi Beach. So, whilst we're standing in the present, the situation was encouraged and inspired by the negligence of this man's leadership. And I don't mind the man. I think he's very well spoken and pretty well harmless. But the problem with that is his harmlessness, his empathy, and all the rest of it, his political charisma, was ignorant and negligent towards the Islamist jihad frenzy that took place.
Hanukkah is about. Today, Jewish Australians are observing their holy day of Shabbat. It's a Shabbat like none that have come before. Tomorrow will mark 1 week since this senseless and heinous attack. It will be another difficult day for grieving families, for loved ones, and for us as a nation. As I announced yesterday, we've declared tomorrow, together with New South Wales, a National Day of Reflection to honour the victims and stand in solidarity with the Jewish community.
Okay, so that's all well and good now that the massacre's taken place, and goodness knows what's up ahead. That's all great. But he didn't stand in unity. The Labor government did not stand in unity with the Jewish communities at all when they were asked to cool down on the protests, on the Palestinian protests. As a matter of fact, they were completely ignored, to the point where the Israeli Prime Minister warned the Labor government that this was going to happen, and sure enough, he was right. This man, Anthony Albanese, is in damage control, severe damage control, and he knows it, and their government know it. They've failed across the board. If you watch the Senate estimates, everything's on notice, and has been on notice in many cases for way too long. They are not transparent, as he promised. And this guy, actually, at the moment, he's getting away with murder, literally. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, but he is, because he just didn't do anything to stop the momentum. Now, when they used momentum, they used it towards facilitating the suggestion of a state of Palestine. Now, this was against the will of the Australian nation. They totally took it upon themselves, the Labor government, despite all advice, international advice as well, to bung this on.
Today I can confirm that at the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly in September, Australia will recognise the state of Palestine.
Now, it wasn't Australia, viewers, it was the Labor government. It was not Australia. It was the Labor government guising itself as Australia, because Australia didn't agree with it, and you can see the smug on his face.
Australia will recognise the right of the Palestinian people to a state of their own.
I want to make the correction again. It wasn't Australia, it was the Australian Labor government. It was not Australia. These people took it upon themselves to do this, and the majority of us were not in agreement. It was part of the Muslim agenda relative to seats and votes as politicians. And this was a manifestation of Anthony Albanese's pro-Palestinian activism, fundamentalism within his politics. And this is what drove the negligence in the Australian government against the advice that the Jewish communities were being put in danger, and culminated in the Bondi massacre so far, which is only the beginning, because Islamism isn't going to stop because Anthony Albanese is trying to make them think he's on their side. They don't give a rat's who's on their side. They've got an agenda, they've got a jihad, they've got their scriptures and scripts and Allah and Muhammad to satisfy, not Anthony Albanese. But the Australia, be it their terrorism forces or police forces or government, have no idea about the determination of the Muslim ideology, none at all.
Predicated on the commitments Australia has received from the Palestinian Authority.
Now, anybody that believed, and none of these commitments have been followed through with, in promises from a Palestinian Authority, has definitely got something missing. And the cognitive dissonance displayed in this Labor government pursuit to be recognised as complete and thorough Muslim supporters is what's caused this to happen. Now remember, this was a Labor government decision. It wasn't an Australian decision. There was no vote to see whether Australia wanted to make Palestine a state. And this was when Anthony Albanese completely took the mask off. But what Anthony Albanese didn't realise is Islam is a respecter of no persons. Islam is a respecter of no persons. As a matter of fact, if you're a Muslim, even a Muslim fundamentalist, and you get in the way of jihad, you will be eliminated. And this is what they did. And they said it was about...
will be flown at half-mast, and Australians are asked to light a candle and put it in their front window and to observe a minute's silence at 6:47 p.m. 60 seconds carved out from the noise of daily life, dedicated to 15 Australians who should be with us today.
And they possibly could have been, right? And this is the tragedy and travesty of it all. Had the Labor government shown more restraint towards their political pro-Palestinian activism, and that's the truth of it.
It will be a moment of pause to reflect and affirm that hatred and violence will never define us as Australians. The theme of the memorial service tomorrow
Well,
night...
that's not true either, because Australia was founded on violence, not so much hatred, but it was definitely founded on violence because they were told not to interfere with inhabited lands when they left Britain. And sure enough, they did, and my ancestors suffered terribly at the hands of it. Horrible.
in Bondi is a night of unity, light over darkness. And we are seeing that exhibited in so many ways by the 24-hour service that our medical professionals, our nurses and people are showing in hospitals, caring for people.
Who were promised a pay rise, but they didn't give them one.
By the queues of Australians wanting to give blood to assist with the process. By people reaching out to give comfort to their Jewish friends in their local communities as well.
And by the police and detectives and terror forces in the background running around mopping up all the jihadist mess.
Together with the New South Wales Government, we'll continue to discuss with Jewish community leaders the establishment of a permanent memorial at Bondi, as well as the National Day of Mourning.
Oh, that's lovely. Now we've got another memorial which will probably get vandalised.
Today, the National Security Committee has met for the 7th time since last Sunday. We'll continue to meet and to be briefed by our agencies on their response. And yesterday, I visited the Australian Federal Police and ASIO to thank those personnel who are working so hard on these issues. And
on the radical Islamic jihadist issues that are manifesting in our country, Australia.
Monday, I will reconvene the Cabinet here in Canberra to continue the work that we are doing. Over recent days, we've announced new measures to eliminate the scourge of anti-Semitism.
Now, he means the scourge of radical Islamic jihad, right? That's what he means, but they won't say it, right? They will not say it because they need these votes. That's why they're allowing 1,550 around that approximate immigrants come into our country a day still against Australian will.
Stop the hate preachers, to get guns off our streets.
And what hate preachers? The Islamic, jihadi, fanatical, radical Muslim hate preachers.
To ensure that law enforcement agencies have the resources that they need to prevent future attacks. We've also announced mental health.
Future attacks from who? Future attacks from terrorists. Future attacks from radical, fanatical, Islamist jihadis who've decided that they're going to go all the way for the Islamic scripts.
Small business support for the local community around Bondi. Today we've also...
Now he's talking about business support, right? Business support. What a lot of you people don't know is the hero of the whole thing's business was nearly wiped out by the government. Now this was a hard one, viewers, but the hero, and I found this on this guy's Chris Boy's channel, I heard his talk on this, had his shop shut down for 90 days. There is credible reporting that tobacconist stores in Australia, including one called Cigar Tobacconist in Sutherland area, Sydney, was shut down as part of a government crackdown and ordered to remain closed for 90 days as part of a closure order under new laws targeting illicit tobacco and illegal vaping products. Apparently this nearly sent the man out of business, but with the $2.5 million check that he got for being a hero, which he rightfully earned, nobody else ran in. Although the two people at the start, when they got out of their car, who were shot dead, they were heroes as well, and I'm sure there were several others. But this guy got the money. He won't be selling tobacco anymore. He won't need to.
Announced as the result of a request, new funding for both Bondi and North Bondi life-saving clubs. They used up a lot of their resources in responding to the crisis that we saw last Sunday. Many of these lifesavers also, of course, ran towards danger to provide support, to use the skills that they have to save lives. I'm deeply proud indeed of every hero, as I'm sure every Australian should be, who saved lives last Sunday, and in time we'll make sure that they're appropriately recognised. Before I turn to Commissioner Barrett to give an AFP operational update, I do want to comment on the US strikes on ISIS in Syria that we've seen.
Now this is different to how we're dealing with it. The USA bombs them. Watch this.
These strikes are a direct response to ISIS attacks on US defence personnel.
Okay, so we've had an ISIS attack on Australian civilians. Is that any different?
And the actions of the United States government are timely, are swift and are decisive, and we support those actions. ISIS has caused untold suffering.
Particularly at Bondi Beach. If these two guys had ISIS flags in their car, why is he focusing on the United States and Syria? For goodness sake, can't he bring ISIS into the argument with Bondi and just start nailing it?
In the world, both directly with the actions that they've taken, but also through their evil ideology that they spread.
Okay, now that's as close as you're going to get to Anthony Albanese saying evil, Islamic, jihadist, Muslim ideology. That's as close as you're going to get. That's it. You're not going to get any more than that out of the man, because underneath his core values are pro-Palestinian activism, and it's caused him to be cognitive dissident. You'll find this with religious people that are in cults and stuff. You cannot change their mind no matter what you do, because they believe what they believe, and they'll go down they'll go down with the ship, and they'll take everybody else with them, like in the case of what happened at Bondi.
And are decisive, and we support those actions. ISIS has caused untold suffering around the world, both directly with the actions that they've taken, but also through their evil ideology that they spread.
Which is Islamic, jihadist, radical, fanatical action. And we saw it at Bondi.
Sunday was an ISIS-inspired attack here in Australia.
Okay, now he let ISIS and all these other people run over the harbour bridge, run over the Opera House. He let them go, he let them go, he let them go. Right? He can't salvage that. He can't change that. He let them go. Now, talking about Israel bombing ISIS in Syria and everything ain't going to bring back 15 dead Jewish people on Bondi Beach. And at the moment, quite frankly, it's irrelevant. We've known what ISIS is. Why do you think Palestine's been levelled? Oh, gosh. The cognitive dissonance.
And that evil ideology represents something that should have no place in any consideration of humanity and who we are as global citizens.
Well, he's just totally undone his government, because they let it go. They let it go on the iconic Sydney Harbour Bridge in front of the world, to our embarrassment. The Opera House, he let them run wild in a frenzy. Where are the Jews? And they've burnt down synagogues and all the rest of it. He let this all go. It's no good in coming out with this now. It's too late. It is just too late.
Let alone as Australians. And I support the US government response there. I'll now turn to...
So you said you were at the Great Synagogue last night. Can you talk me through how were people last night? What were they saying to you there?
They were firstly determined to celebrate their Jewish faith, to engage in
Well,
the
why wouldn't they be? Why would any of that have changed?
initial period after we arrived. There was much dancing of children. There was singing and people singing along. It was a joyous celebration, but of course, in the context of what has been a very difficult period for the Jewish
Very
community.
difficult 2 years, viewers. Let's just hold the facts here.
I felt very moved by having the opportunity to spend time with the community. We engaged in, as well after that occurred, there was the lighting of the menorah, the Hanukkah celebrations of the next candle, commemorating the victory of light over darkness. And it was a very uplifting event. And for the community, it was an opportunity to engage very directly with them. And I thank Rabbi Ben Elton, but others who were there as well. There was the religious service as well took place, and I was accompanied by the Governor of New South Wales was there, Matt Thistlethwaite. Christopher Minns was there for the Hanukkah part of the evening as well. And it showed to me, as I said in my opening remarks, it just showed that this is a community that are determined to be proud of who they are as they should be.
Oh my God. Oh gosh. Why didn't he stand up for them for the last 2 years? Why did he only come out after damage had been done? Synagogues burnt. Harbour Bridge demoralised. Opera House demoralised. Cars burnt. People shot. Don't worry, the Muslims are shooting up the Muslims as well here in Sydney. It is not Australian, any of it. And all of a sudden, Anthony Albanese, even though they're still accepting it, thinks he's going to get away with this without any consequence. From where I'm standing, it's over for this bloke.
To not be cowed by the actions of terrorists who seek to divide us, but to be able to practice their faith.
Well, he was coward because he wouldn't stop the protests. He wouldn't, and that went on for 2 years, and all the other rubbish, Islamic rubbish that he allowed. He was a coward.
To engage with each other in a very positive way. I was given gifts by some Jewish
Want to
men,
count himself lucky.
beforehand, traditional, to give some bread that was baked as part of the Hanukkah commemorations as well. So it was very positive, and I thank Rabbi Elton for the welcome. I thought his sermon as well, which was about unity, about reconciliation, about people of different faiths.
Now, hang on. The Jewish people have always been that way. He should have been condemning the radical Islamic jihad preachers. They call it hate preaching. It's jihad preaching. Why didn't he condemn it? Why all of a sudden is he going, oh, my beliefs, even though I'm a pro-activist, Palestinian pro-activist supporter, I didn't know they'd actually carry out jihad in Australia against the Jews. I believed what the Palestinian government told me. That's how cognitive dissonance works in people that have these beliefs.
Together, and that being uplifting for the whole community was a very positive message that I received last night. I'll just go around along. Yeah.
What items were discussed in the National Security Committee this morning, and were there any developments in terms of the measures that we can see in the aftermath of the attack?
Well, we don't. I don't give a line-by-line report on NSC, but we continue to hear reports about the investigations from both the AFP, ASIO, and ACES as well. We continued to discuss as well the response. We agreed to reconvene the Cabinet on Monday morning, the full cabinet here in Canberra, and we had discussions about the work that's being taken place.
Well, he's had to reconvene the cabinet because his job's on the line, big time.
On the development of legislation before to bring before the Parliament to strengthen hate laws and
to strengthen the assault against Islamic jihad in Australia should be the focus.
Strengthen other laws to deal with what I foreshadowed on Friday.
I have a couple of questions for you, if you'll allow me, seeing as we're
Sure.
so light on.
Sure.
This was the deadliest terror attack in Australia's history. Will you be supporting a royal commission into the attack?
Well, what we're continuing to do at this point is to act, and we are
That's not a straight answer, is it?
acting. I've asked the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet as well to give consideration to looking across departments. I'll have more to say about those issues. I note that New South Wales, I had a discussion with Chris Minns this morning, that they are considering calling a royal commission.
He has said that this morning.
Yeah.
Will you be supporting that yourself?
I will support whatever actions the New South Wales government take. We are working in lockstep.
So when will we see that royal commission?
New South Wales have made an announcement this morning. They're working on that.
Okay. We've talked a lot this year about espionage and foreign interference, but do you think your government had the right security priorities in the months leading up to this deadly attack?
Well, we continue to to prioritise keeping Australians safe.
They didn't do that. He's saying we continue. For the last 2 years, Australians, and in particular the Jewish community, have been asking the government to stop the pro-Palestinian fundamental Islamic jihadism, calls for intifada, calls for the mass extermination of the Jews. We've asked for this man to stop it. We've asked for the government to stop it. I'm not a Jew, but I asked for them to stop it. There was petitions. There was people having to go out and stand up against it. They did nothing. Absolutely. He has continued. If he continues what he's been doing, he will continue to do nothing.
The government and all of the agencies prioritise the threats that they have identified, and foremost of
Hang
that
on, there was threats being clearly identified for the last 2 years.
is the threat from some of the extreme Islamist inspired threats which are there. So my government.
Well, that's really hard for him to say. Do you know, he sort of stumbled and he got it out. Islamic jihadism manifesting itself in Australia has got to be stopped.
Government continues to.
He didn't continue.
engage
He's
in
just starting.
all of
He's
the
just starting, like a baby crawling.
threats, but we are prioritised according to the advice that we receive.
And I will say, he's just starting this campaign now out of sufferance.
My job is to give every support to the AFP, to ASIO, to ACES, to the Australian Signals Directorate, to all of our national security architecture to make sure that they can be the best that they can possibly be in defending Australia's interests.
Well, he's just thrown all the magistrates and everybody else under the bus, because the magistrates allowed, right, against the opposition of the police and the New South Wales Premier, all those protests to go ahead, including the Harbour Bridge and the Opera House, which all called for the death of the Jews and intifada, and in front of the whole world against the Australian people, advertised what apparently was a majority belief in pro-Palestinian, whatever it is, but it was a minority, a small little percentage of Australia that were made to look bigger than what they are. It was terrible, absolutely terrible what this government allowed. This guy's actually in damage control. He's in severe damage control.
That is what we do, and we have provided every support.
What do you say, just like the Prime Minister, if you will, what do you say to criticism from members of the federal opposition and some Jewish leaders that your leadership has been weak during this time?
Well, I say that this is a time.
No, it's not a time for unity and all this garbage. It's a time for you to be accountable. It's a time for you to say, I missed the Harbour Bridge protests. I missed out on stopping the Opera House. We missed out on all the encouragement of the killing of the Jews. And it's my fault. I'm sorry, and I resign. The Governor-General's on his side. She's hopeless. It's going to be a miracle for this guy to get out of government.
For us to unite. This is not a time...
It wasn't. He never united in the last 2 years. We begged him to stop the protests. We begged him to stop the pro-Palestinian kill all the Jews protests. We begged him. As Australians, not as Jews, not as Muslims, just as plain old silly bloody Australians. And the bloke wouldn't listen, and he was prideful about it. As far as calling a fanciful, impossible Palestinian state.
For partisan politics. This is a time for us to unite together.
We were united. He was the one that wasn't united. We begged him to stop it all. Not as Jews, as just as simple bloody peaceful Australians, and he wouldn't do it.
In what we...
Bloody Penny Wong wouldn't do it, and what's that guy's name that was meeting him at the airport? He's a crook. Going down and bringing in people from Gaza against the Australians' will. Bringing back ISIS brides secretly. They got caught out. This government's a shipwreck.
No, is in Australia's national interest, and I note that tomorrow...
Australia's national interest? He couldn't have given a crack 2 weeks ago about Australia's bloody national interests. Couldn't have cared less. This is damage control. It's over for this bloke. The normal civilian, the normal Australian has lost all confidence. If you look at Australia from where we're standing, it's a mess. Watch the Senate estimates. Give yourself the privilege to watch the Senate estimates and look at how much of a mess this government's in.
Evening, the theme, the night of unity, light over darkness. That is what I'm determined to do. And that is what, in the past, when there have been issues such as the
Sydney Harbour Bridge protests, the burning of synagogues, caravans apparently full of explosives, the protests on the harbour. I mean, it's just the last 2 years have been so bad.
Arthur shooting, COVID, a range of issues that have...
COVID? They were shooting the Australians with rubber bullets. Come on. They were shooting Australians with rubber bullets. They put people out of work. People lost their homes. People lost their businesses. Oh, come on. This is bad. This is so... When you get into the meat and potatoes of this government, it is so corrupt and wrong and Pinocchioed.
Tested our nation. The nation comes together. And
it didn't. They pulled the nation apart. If Anthony Albanese had his way, the pro-Palestinian people would be all over this country, and they're going to continue. This man was silly enough to believe the Palestinian Authority. You've got to be kidding me.
Only oppositions in the laws that were put before the Parliament from John Howard. The opposition at that time provided support for those issues rather than looked for product differentiation.
Well, they had no choice. It was the biggest massacre in Australian history. They had no choice but to support it. What do you think? They're all stupid? But this man would not support the cessation of the Palestinian pro-Palestinian protesters being shut down. He wouldn't support it. And the momentum from that in their heads was to produce a proposal for an impossible Palestinian state and allowed all these jihadist fundamentalists in Australia to think that they've got permission to abuse and push over people that didn't want anything to do with it in our peaceful nation of Australia. And it culminated in a massacre at again, another iconic place, Bondi Beach. You've got to get underneath this rhetoric.
And we will certainly reach out to the opposition, continue to do so. We want these issues to not be issues which are partisan, because that is what Australians expect of their government, but also what they expect of their parliament.
Oh my God.
Police being deployed in New South Wales, and
Oh
also
my God.
Sydney's Muslim community being warned of more counter-terror raids. Are you worried about the impact of Sunday on social cohesion?
The priority must be keeping people
It's
safe.
so bad.
And that has been the priority. One way that we keep people safe, though, is to engage with the community. And that is what I know the Australian Federal Police and the intelligence agencies continue to do.
That is wrong. They didn't listen to the communities. We begged them to stop the pro-Palestinian stirring up of Jew hatred. We begged them for 2 years and they didn't listen. We begged them. We were sitting in our houses in Australia and it didn't feel like Australia anymore. And they did nothing. We were watching Israel getting bombed, and you got these people saying, they're running the lies of genocide and all this nonsense. If you start a war, you better be able to fight it. Now, Anthony Albanese started, right, this big spin on momentum. He started the momentum of the Islamic Jihad having a belief that they're going to get away with it in Australia. And wherever he's in government, unfortunately, for the most part, they're going to. Because it doesn't matter what you put in place. When somebody goes terrorist, right, you're just not going to be Johnny on the spot. It's just how it works. If a Christian minister wants to sleep with the worship person that's married, that's going to happen behind closed doors and destroy the church. When the fundamental jihadist Islamists go, right, I'm in and I'm going to do this, and they run a car along the footpath and kill 20 or 30 people, you can't expect the police and all that to be there. It's the message that the government sent over the last 2 years to the jihadists that they'll get away with it because they did nothing.
Minister for Social Cohesion to be created. Is that something you would support? Do you think there should be further action around boosting community cohesion at this time?
Look, I think one of the things that my government has prioritised is social cohesion and working through.
That's rubbish. They didn't. They let the angst and the enmity of the pro-Palestinian Islamist jihad mindset go for 2 years. This is just rhetoric. This is just Pinocchio in a political suit.
Those issues. If you look at the work that we have done in areas like multicultural affairs, we prioritise that. But the first priority must be keeping people safe.
And he failed in doing it. Viewers, he completely failed. I'm out.